is the Tuesday, the 16th of December 2025, and this is papertrail.com, a daily streaming all about governance, risk and compliance in the UK for the SME and mid-market firms. Yesterday, we looked at the scale of the UK compliance, which is quite big. We talk about 8,500 to 16,000 pages of guidance. And today we look into what happens after you start, right? We discussed how to start yesterday, so you can look into that streaming. But today we look into what to do next. So what to do next have three common problems, I say. And problem number one is across universal and conditional mandatory UK regimes, businesses face around 5,500 individual obligations if each framework is treated separately. And remember, we explained yesterday that universal frameworks are the mandatory ones, whether you like it or not, like GDPR. And conditionals are those in scope for your companies, like the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency if you are managing fleet or commercial vehicles, right? So DVCA is in scope, GDPR is mandatory. You can't escape it. Right. Problem number two is that different regulators publish those obligations, but they target the same risks. So data misuse, unsafe work, cyber incidents, and governance failure. So this is something to bear in mind. I'm going to explain later what this means. And problem number three is when teams organize by frameworks, and remember, for example, GDPR, health and safety, and driver vehicles. What happened is that the same policies, training records, and logs are recreated multiple times, often by different departments, HR, operations, IT, etc., right? So you can picture this. This is where we have the challenges. This is like three inspectors checking the same fire exit, okay? Each one using different wording and asking you to rebuild the door every time based on their own wording. And you say, hold on a second, it's a fire exit, it's compliant, but different inspectors is using different words according to the framework that they are using, but referring to the same thing. But the outcome that you see that you should do is, oh, I have to rebuild this door again, right? This is how complex the things start to get just because of wording. So here are 3 points to consider when thinking about the maths behind why the UK compliance works repeats itself. Number one, the UK regulators do not write frameworks in isolation. They regulate risk, not paperwork, right? And number two is that is why 60 to 78% of obligations overlap once they are mapped by outcome rather than the document source, right? So if you go by framework instead of outcome, you will start to see a lot of overlaps. And number three is that, just to illustrate these points, so here are three frameworks that probably you are most likely familiar with that have the same expectations. GDPR, the accountability under the Information Commissioner's Office, is one framework. And health and safety is under the Health and Safety Executive, and cyber controls and the Cyber Essentials. These three frameworks, all of which expect structured responsibility training and evidence, right? Guess what? GDPR usually is managed by probably your HR department. Health and safety is a mix between your HR department and your operations teams, and also Cyber Essentials is by IT or your people managing systems. So it's three different frameworks, and you say, okay, so they are not related to each other, but all of them expect the same thing: structural responsibility, training, and evidence. And that's where the overlaps start to happen, because there are three people thinking that they are working in isolation, but actually the structural responsibilities, trainings, and evidence are related to pretty much the same organization, the same company, the same teams, and the same individuals. So you see how deep we start to get these complexities just in wording and different frameworks asking for the same things, particularly for SMEs and mid-market companies where there are not dedicated teams, officials, or personnel within the company to run these compliance requirements. So no wonder 73% of the UK companies outsource and hire consultants, advisors, or delegate to contractors, according to the PwC report this year. So you say, okay, so with all this confusion, with all this outsourcing, what I should be looking for? As I always mention in these live streams, that you and your company should have a compliance baseline, or at least a baseline in mind, so you can hire on your own terms, right? So knowing what to look for is very important, because you can hire on your own terms. And these are 3 suggestions when outsourcing, particularly when you want to understand why the UK compliance work repeats itself. When you're looking for outsourcing, number 1 is, what is the outcome that they produce? Do they clearly consolidate obligations properly, so that the approximately 5,500 raw obligations across different frameworks collapse roughly to 800 and 1,100, but a meaningful obligation related to your organization and based on your business profile, right? This is very important. Number 2, how they differentiate themselves. Do they perform this consolidation before tasks are created? So duplication never enters the systems, right? This is very important. Tasks are created before entering the systems of reporting, because otherwise you are starting to have these challenges, like with your HR teams, your operations teams, and your IT teams, that actually they are doing the same thing and duplicating their job. And number 3 is how they help you to reduce the risk. Do they set up, for example, one obligation, one owner, one evidence that satisfies multiple UK frameworks at the same time? So one action to test this in your organization is very simple. List one compliance artifact that you have produced more than once. For example, a policy, a training record, a risk assessment, and note which frameworks ask for it. If you cannot perform this in 30 minutes or less, you may need to consider another solution. And in case you are wondering what artifacts means, is to create a piece of evidence that you produce during supplier due diligence. And here I think is the best example of how wording starts to get confusing when they are talking about exactly the same thing. An artifact is a piece of evidence to produce during supplier due diligence. That's the official description, right? It's a piece of evidence. It's evidence. It's proof. It's what you do to prove what you've done and you have happened in your organization, who is responsible for that, etc., etc. So an artifact is a piece of evidence. It's not more than that, but the wording is start to create a confusion. So you imagine this across 16 different frameworks, where everyone have different lingo for different things, but they are referring exactly the same thing. So that is why compliance sometimes is so difficult. So what you need really is a faster, more reliable, and easier way to handle all these things. So that's why we build our software from the ground up. It's called Paper Trail. So if you want to stop doing the same in compliance work 3 times or more in different folders, join the Paper Trail waitlist. You can stop activities that increase workload but add no value, increase your cost and labor hours and expenses, but it's just redundant work. So this is perfect for UK SMEs and mid-market firms, because you use the same control libraries for all your frameworks, like health and safety, GDPR, DVCA, cybersecurity, EPR for packages. So there's no double entries. This is reducing your overlap by 60% and your costs by 80%. It's all in one place. It's continuous gap analysis. It's a clear view of what's done, what is missing, and who owns and who is responsible for fixed things or accountable for things before assurance inspections and reports or audits hits you. So you can do it once, you can do it properly, and move on to the things that are more important to you, like growth your company, or growth your department, and reduce cost and be more profitable. So join the waitlist, papertrail.com, and stay tuned, because yesterday we saw the scale, today we prove why the work is duplicate, and tomorrow I'll show you how duplication makes ownership disappear, so people start to be less accountable, even when the work is being done. So thank you very much. Have a great day.